infection stops where information starts. Welcome to the Transmission Control Podcast, where knowledge is your strongest defense. Broadcasting from the front lines of healthcare, we dive into the strategies, science, and stories shaping infection prevention today. Each episode, we connect you with experts on real-world insights to help you stop the spread of healthcare-associated infections, protect patients, and strengthen your practices as an infection prevention and public health expert. When the right information reaches the right people, lives are saved.
You're listening to Transmission Control, and this is part 2 of our Before and After series, a special feature recorded around this year's National Infection Prevention Conference in Phoenix. I'm Hank Balch, and today's After episode is for all of you who stopped by the Dri-Scope booth there at 1335 in Phoenix, as well as all of those who maybe didn't get to make the trip, but you still want the key takeaways. We're talking post-conference reflections, some booth highlights, and big conversations. Most importantly, what comes next now that the exhibit hall lights are off and the IP work continues. Let's dive back in with George Cronin, who also happens to be our 2025 endoscope drying expert here on Transmission Control. George, how was the show, man?
It was awesome. As always, IP brings it. Just a talented group that they spend time. You saw them going booth to booth to booth, engaged in conversations and not just trying to get their way through everybody.
Right. Well, and the big conversation I know we had on the before episode was, hey, there's a lot of questions these days around guidelines and regulations, like where are we in the space today around what should, shall, must be dried, what that looks like. What kind of conversations did you have on that front?
There was a lot. I think our number one question was, how do I get buy-in on automated drying with my end users? Really, SPDs they get it. They've had, I think SPD, and this is some of the conversations, they kind of get it because they have sometimes failures because things are still wet when they're going to sterilize them, right? But in GI, we don't really have that, and they need to see buy-in. And I think the biggest keys on how do I get buy-in is there is more and more and more data points out there and studies out there showing you that scopes are definitely wet, that bacteria can grow. The IFU is telling you to dry them. The guidelines are telling you how you should dry them. Like they're giving you guardrails on how you should dry your scopes because the IFU says you must dry the scope. But unfortunately, it just says you must dry the scope. So I think most of those comments wrapped that part up. Most of it was, how do I get buy-in from my teams? But it was also great and refreshing to hear after being part of this drying journey since 2017, a lot of them coming in and saying, what should I recommend to my departments because they're asking me about drying?
Right. Well, it's funny. This is an audio interview, obviously, but anyone who got to see you at the booth there in Phoenix, they probably, got a little hint of like a Mr. Clean type feel, you got the smooth head going there. But, you could be Mr. Dry, right? Like if we really want to call it that, like, what you're out there doing every single day in the industry and there in the booth is what kind of conversations are going to take us from not dry, which is dangerous, to dry, which is that level of safety and we're all looking for, right? IP, sterile processing, SG&A conversations, right? For the clinician side, we all want that dryness factor. We're all starting to see now through the data that you're referencing and these guideline recommendations. The industry is starting to get it, but now you've got these IP conversations like you had there in Phoenix. They're like, okay, I get it now as the IP. Now, how do I take this back to my sterile processing team or to my endo team and start seeing some movement, investment, and buy-in? What are some of maybe the big takeaways or maybe the wins, I don't know, success stories that you can share to kind of start orienting us now because we're on the way home from Phoenix? What do we do next? Like, what kind of conversations should we be taking home? What kind of aha moments even did you get in the booth that you want IPs to say, okay, I'm not going to forget this piece. Like I may forget the one session that I sat in at 6 a.m. that one morning, I may forget this and that, but I don't want to forget we've got scopes out there that are not dry, and we cannot allow that to continue.
Yeah, it's interesting because, well, for one point is I don't expect anybody that even stopped by the booth, and I think I told a lot of people this, that I expect you to remember about 20% of it. But the big,
right?
And I do this all the time in
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? And I babble on for a long time, so I try to stop myself and ask more questions. But a couple of the key points that IPs walk away with, and this is from prior years, and I tried to integrate it into this year, was not necessarily here's the drying scope products, here's their flow rate, here's their clinical data. It's, hey, Dri-Scope has multiple ways to dry the internal channels. Let me go and sit with my team when I get back to endo or SPD or urology or wherever, and we can look at and say, I think this product might fit the best versus this one. Or this Jetstream small unit is going to be perfect for sterile processing because we're drying scopes and then bringing them back up to the OR to put in a cabinet. Let's finish the infection control process downstairs before we bring the scopes upstairs. But GI, let's use the tracker cabinet because we need accountability and we need to manage scopes first in, first out, rather than just putting one in and human nature taking the scope that's right in front of you out. I think there's a lot of that has gone into this. And then also it's not just GI scopes. That was kind of everybody understood that, but wrapping their heads around like, whoa, I've got lots of different places in the hospital doing high-level disinfection.
Right. Right. Now, so I kind of made an assumption earlier, George, and I want to maybe take a step back and ask you just directly. In these conversations, when you're talking specifically to IPs, are you running into any IPs today that are not aware of the dryness conversations happening out there in the industry today? Or is everyone pretty much aware and they're now looking for solutions and implementation? Or are they looking for sources and references? Like, where are we in this journey of awareness and then execution?
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Okay.
So we are still all over the board here, which
Okay.
is expected. It's not an easy thing to dry an endoscope after high-level disinfection, especially since you've been doing it for one way for so long and assuming things can happen. So there's pushback. One is we don't have to do it because I don't see infections. Right? I'm in an endo center, or if I'm in a one section of the hospital, I don't see infections all the time. I don't have patients coming back, and we don't see that because the patient doesn't have an infection right there. Right? So it's after the fact that we're not seeing this, and IPs are more and more in tune with it because the AAMI guidelines, SG&A, AORN, the multi-societal guidelines, they did a really good job being individuals, but really stating the same message, right? And that's kind of helped to funnel things down to say, okay, here's what we need to focus on. And then there's a broader thing, there's money that's involved, right? So there's capital expenditures that have to happen to accomplish this task, space that we don't have. So there's lots of different aspects of it, but I believe that IPs coming out of this conference understand why we need to do it, and they're kind of grasping fully how to do it. Now it's just really wrapping our heads around like, all right, what are we going to do? What are we finally going to do to say, okay, we have to move forward here, and what product are we going to get? Ideally, it's a Dri-Scope product, but whatever drying product that you're looking at, how are you going to implement that?
Right. And, for a lot of people, that first step is the hardest. Like, they may get the big, like, these are the results that I want. I want dry scopes. What is that first step? Like, when you kind of see that aha moment happen in the eyes of IP, or even in the eyes of the endo reprocessing manager, sterile processing manager, when they finally get it and they're like, oh my goodness, this is a gap. And I agree that it's a gap. And now I want to do something. What is that first step that you encourage people to take to get the ball rolling in this process?
So I have reps all over the country. I do Teams meetings. I go out on site. I work with big IDNs for IPs that are part of very large IDNs or GPOs or teaching hospitals. I work with them a lot because now they're looking at, I have a teaching hospital to a community center to surgery centers, how do they all fit in one box? And they don't have to. So they can all do things a little bit differently, same for us at least, with the same standardization, just different products. But that first step is, a lot of times we hop on a Teams meeting, or I come in, or my reps are in there, and my reps go in there to sell Dri-Scope. They don't go in there to sell the big purple cabinet that everybody saw, or the small unit. They go in there to sell Dri-Scope, what's going to work. But they can go through all of the guidelines and all of the studies, because this is what we do every day, right? IP is not, and especially IP is going and doing all that data research, but we can help you with that and send it to you. When you get to the nurse manager, one of the things I've always done in teaching reps is, especially in GI, if you walk in and that nurse manager is wearing scrubs and coming out of a procedure room, she or he are not then going to their office and reading all the new guidelines. Right? They don't have time because they have, 25 people all with the same tenure, all asking for the 4th of July off. They have to work through all that plus cover breaks, right? So we need to be able to help them do that. And that's what we do. We can help mine through some of the data for them. So then they can bring it to that next step to say, okay, how are we going to implement? Here's why. We can help them. The initial step to wrap this question up is we can help them define the why.
Yeah, that consultative approach, George, you kind of allude to, right? Every department is different. Every need is different. Every journey in this process is different. Did you just go through a renovation, but you forgot about this drying phase? Are you about to go through renovation or construction? You bring new clinics online, like you said. It's really hard from the clinical leader standpoint to be able to work through all the nuances on something this niche and yet this important. And so having folks like your team that can come in and say, hey, we've done this many, many times at all kinds of different facilities, big, small, different parts of the journey, to come in and say, okay, these are some key recommendations you should consider, and then begin to build a case. I think that's a terrific resource. Speaking of resources, I'm assuming your website's going to have additional resources, maybe then even people have the opportunity to see at the booth. Kind of give a shout out to what is on that website, and then give us the URL too, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so you can go to Dri-Scope.com, which is Dri-Scope.com. Everything's on there, all of our different products. We have a bunch of resources to studies, not enough. That's on me. I've got to update the website a little bit better. I'm active on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me directly, George@Dri-Scope.com. But on the contacts page on the website, if you just go there and it says, what are you interested in? And you write, I need help, we got you. You don't have to say a specific product. It doesn't matter. We react to that contact page very quickly, because if you're reaching out to us, we know that you need information and you want help through this journey.
Okay. George, congrats on a fantastic APIC 2025. Do you have any other events going on later in the summer and the fall that you've already queued up on?
We have lots of, which is great to see, lots and lots of local conferences, local chapters that we're a sponsor. Send them to us. It's another thing. If you are if you have a local chapter, hop on our Dri-Scope.com, send us the information. We love supporting it, especially the local folks that can't get to all the national meetings. So we have lots of local conferences coming up, and I'm just mostly happy that I got out of Phoenix with my bald head that wasn't completely burnt.
That's all right. SPF 50 on it, right?
Exactly.
All right, George, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great conversation today.
I enjoyed it.
All right, that was George Cronin. And again, he is our 2025 transmission control endoscope drying expert this year. So there's going to be a lot more you're going to be hearing and seeing from George and his team. But for now, thank you all for joining us for this after episode of Before and After here on Transmission Control. Whether you call it Dri-Scope in Phoenix or you're just now discovering what they're all about, the next step is all up to you. Make sure to visit them at Dri-Scope, Dri-Scope.com, to check out those resources and contact page that George was alluding to. Connect with their team there, and let's keep this momentum going. Please don't forget to subscribe to Transmission Control and give us a rating, as well as share this episode with your fellow IP warriors out there, because we know there's a lot of folks who did not get the opportunity to travel there to Phoenix, but we want to make sure they don't miss this critical conversation around drying. Stay tuned, because we've got a lot more great IP content coming your way soon. But until next time, remember, infection stops where information starts.
Thanks for tuning in to the Transmission Control Podcast, where infection stops because information starts. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and share this episode with your team. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and keep transmission under control.